Okay, well, welcome everybody. It's really great that you've all managed to come to the module again this evening. It's really appreciated. So technical officiating refresher part 2. So without further ado, we'll get moving. So the topics for tonight are mainly aimed at developing the timekeepers and current CR officials. I really apologize for this, but I really need to remind you again because there's some people with their audio still on. So we're going to go through the introductions and agenda, and then we'll look at recording the results accurately. So what do we actually need to do, the way we need to do it. And there's been a couple of little tweaks just to make things explained a little bit easier going forward. Some summary clarifications. So I hope you've all come armed with your pen and paper, because you'll need a pen and paper certainly towards the end of the module. We're expecting the module to take around 60 to 90 minutes, depending. The reason there's a time span is it depends on the questions we get asked. And again, hopefully for the last time, please ensure your audio is off throughout the presentation unless specifically requested to do otherwise. So the introduction. So the presentation will be done by myself, Keith Merrick, British Judo staff, and I'll lead the presentation this evening. And I'll be very ably and competently supported by Peter Home, competition controller, who's acting in a technical support role this evening. And of course, Andy Grand, also a competition controller and also acting as a technical support. These are the two guys that will be answering any of your questions. And I'd just like to emphasize that your questions need to be launched through the chat function, please. So no audio. So this module, the module is designed to help you refresh and manage pool sheets. Basically, what we want to do is go through the basics of the way we order the entries into the pool sheets, and the way we get to, in the case of the simple knockout from a pool sheet, how we get to the knockout and where we place people. Feel free to ask questions all the way through, but it must be via the chat function. Just type it in and either Andy or Pete will answer your questions. If these overspill right until the end, we'll have a short session to answer the questions that remain. What we don't want is anybody worrying too much about the volume or anything that seems a little bit unfamiliar to them, because when we get back to competition, you will be mentored at the events, and we'd hope that people will be a little bit more tolerant than usual. The module, there's no tricks in the module, absolutely no tricks. There are real scenarios that need to be considered, and we haven't made anything falsely awkward to make it difficult. So it is stuff that happens on a regular basis. So the first thing we want to get off with is the recording of the results and recording of those quite accurately. So this is the legend, or half of the legend. The other half will be on the next slide, and tweak the legend a little bit. So most of it will be familiar with people. So the first four are obviously going to be quite familiar. A T with a circle, wheeling, a win by ippon throw, H with a circle, by a hold, C with a circle, by a choke or strangle, whichever you'd like to describe it as, and L winning by ippon with an arm lock. What we've now done on the legend is also added the 4 different ways that you can record ippon by the way of 2 wazari. So wazari awazati ippon, and we've put the 4 ways. So it's throw, then hold then throw, throw, or hold. This may seem a little bit pedantic, but the reason it was decided to put in the techniques as they actually happened is if we get challenged at a later time, we can more accurately describe to the person who's made the challenge exactly what happened. Like the throw came first and then a hold, or the hold came first then a throw, or whatever it is, 2 throws, 2 holes. So we can be a little bit more accurate in our description to people, which may help them. And of course, the last two that win by a score would just be a T with no other markings, which is a win by a Wazzari throw, and an H, which is a win by a Wazzari hold. And there's still somebody making tea in the background, I think, with the volume on. Please mute. So recording the result by other than a score, Fusengachi. So the opponent doesn't appear. When I say doesn't appear, it really could be that they appear just 10 seconds too late. But as we know, in British events, you get 3 minutes at 1 minute intervals. At each 1 minute interval, you get a call. And if you're not at the mat within 3 minutes, it's a Fusengachi result. And then as HM, win by Ansukamaki, opponent against the spirit of judo. So with Fusengachi and Ansukamaki, if the athlete incurs one of these two, see the note at the bottom, that is the end of the competition for that particular athlete. They cannot continue in a pool, a knockout. They are out of the competition altogether. So it's quite a serious thing not to turn up for your match, or it's a very serious thing to commit an Ansukamaki offence against the spirit of judo, because that means you've been either highly dangerous or highly derogatory to somebody. The difference between Ansukamaki against the spirit of judo and not is this nice triangle. So the triangle with an HM, direct Ansukamaki, not against the spirit of judo. A good example would be an athlete performs a head dive when doing a technique. Well, they've not been dangerous to the opponent and they've not been derogatory to anybody. They have endangered themselves, and that's why they get Ansukamaki, but that's not sufficient to put them out the tournament. Kikengachi, so this is just the KG, win by Kikengachi, opponent withdraws for any reason. This is a different description to what we've had many times in the past. Quite a few documents says withdraws due to injury. Now, of course, injury will be the very most likely cause, and probably 90%, maybe even more, of the reason why somebody withdraws from the match. But somebody could withdraw from the match for any particular reason, and it's Kikengachi. So it's withdraws for any reason from the contest. Then we come to a couple of triangles that look very similar. So we need to look at the details. So P with a triangle in a normal mainstream event is win by Ansukamaki from 3 shidos. Not direct Ansukamaki, it's an accumulation. And what you should see is the referee on the 3rd shido actually awarding that 3rd as Ansukamaki, because it's a cumulative effect with the first 2. On the other hand, if we get a situation in a technical restrictions match, we could have a triangle with a P, and it would be P1 or P2, which means they've won on 1 or 2 shidos. In the technical restrictions matches, 1 or 2 shidos can win a fight if at the end of the 3 minutes, the only thing on the board is 1 shido, or maybe 2 shidos to one and 1 shido to the other. The result is done. Another one we've added, S for superiority. We used to use S for superiority on other stuff in the past, but we've brought it back because, again, in the technical restrictions only, and it's very, very, very rare you're going to see this, but in a technical restrictions match, if you go the first 3 minutes and everything is equal, scores and penalties, the athletes will go into a golden score period. In that golden score period, they are limited in technical restrictions to a further 3 minutes. Therefore, if that 3 minutes elapses with no more penalties and no more scores, the referee and judges have to make a decision on who they believe is the winner. And when they give that decision, it goes down as an S and 1 point. We've brought back the D for draw as well, because there is one possibility to put a draw on a sheet in British tournaments, and that is when we have team events and we use the British version team event policy, which means at the end of the normal contest time, a draw could be declared. In the IJF version, it's not possible. Every match is run to conclusion, including golden score, and if you needed it, run all the way to Ansukamaki. And then something that may seem pretty obvious, but it's, again, it wasn't on the legend. It's always best to have everything on there. The athlete that loses the match, you just simply write loss in their box. Okay, so when recording the legend, the result always goes on the left-hand side and the points awarded to the right of that legend. It makes it a standard format and easier to read and understand for everyone. So we need that to be kept going. The athlete that has a loss written in the box, and we've got an example below. The white athlete box will always be to the left of the relevant blue athlete box when using pools, and it will always be the white will always be above the blue one when using knockouts. What I want you to be aware of, just hopefully to avoid any confusion, and this is brought about by computerized systems. For the purpose of this presentation, please consider brackets like this to be a circle. So that's TH in a circle. And the forward and backward slash, consider that to be a triangle. So TH in a circle is Wazaria Wazati Yapon, and the P with a triangle, if it's mainstream seniors, that's Ansukamaki by virtue of 3 Shidos. There's your example, and that's how it would appear in your pool sheet. You would always have the white athlete on the left of the corresponding blue for that particular match. And in this particular match, the white athlete, these brackets are a circle, just remind you again, throw for Ippon, scoring 10 points, and therefore the blue player is the loser. So they have loss written in their box. So as 2 things there to just ascertains who is the winner. What I'd like to do now, before we get on to completing any pool sheets, is just the various methods of competition. So single pools, quite often single pools are used at level 1 events, or you can use them for virtually any event if you want, but it's usually determined by the amount of athletes that turn up. So if you had a level 3 event, for example, and you had a category where there was only 4 or 5 athletes, to give them some real satisfaction for attending the event, you could put all 4 athletes into one pool, so at least they get 3 matches for their trouble of coming to the event. The final places in the pool are always decided in the number of wins first. The wins are the most important, not the points. It's the amount of wins prevails over anything else. But if more than one player has the same number of wins, the second criteria is the number of points they have scored. So 2 players may have 2 wins each, but there's a difference in the amount of points they scored in those particular wins. However, if you have 2 players that are tied on wins and points, which is quite possible, the athlete that goes higher in the pool table is the one who won the contest between those two. So everybody in the pool will fight each other. So there's definitely a result between them. If they got the same points and the same wins, the one who won the match between the two highest, who are now equal, will go higher up in the pool and get the higher position, if indeed they're going through to a knockout. If 3 players have equal wins and points, a refight may be needed for placings. And I say maybe because for sure, if it was a pool of 3, you would need a refight because you need a first and a second place if it's a pools to knockout. If it's a pool of 5 and the 3 that tied are 3rd, 4th and 5th, you probably don't need it. Level 1 events, all players should get a medal or other commemorative offering. Level 1 events are their prime concern is engagement, enjoyment, learning the way it all works, and we want people to go away with a good feeling. And there's still some audio on in the background, please. Can everybody check their audio and mute us because we're getting some scratching and moving. Thank you. And we're still getting it, please. Can somebody have a look at their mute button? In technical restriction matches, if the scores are equal at the end of the contest, but there's a difference in penalties, the contest will be awarded to the one with the fewer penalties. So, typical situation, which happens quite a lot in matches, we'll get to the end and one player's got a sheet out. And what that normally means is you then go into golden score. In a technical restriction match, that's the end of the match. We try not to put these people under too much pressure. So the result is at that point in time. If technical restriction matches go into golden score, as soon as you get any difference in penalties or scores, that will be the end of the contest. We do not need to stack up to Ansukamaki as per the mainstream. Categories, as I've just hinted there, without technical restrictions, they will go all the way, irrespective of penalties. So 3-way tie, it could be required, especially if it's a pool of 3, to get your placings. But the players, if the 3-way tie happens, and let's say number 1 beats number 2 beats number 3, and number 3 beats number 1, and they all do it on ippon throw the first time, you go into 3-way tie, and it all happens again, you need to find a way of splitting them. So what you do is you make sure you time the match, and you make sure that you know exactly the time, especially in the case of Wazari, where you'll get the full duration of the match. At the point the athlete scored Wazari, that is the time that you want. And obviously the one that did it the fastest, got the Wazari quickest, will be number 1. The one that got it second will be number 2, and number 3 is unfortunately out. Extremely rare occasion, but it has happened. It does happen. Sometimes in these unusual scenarios, it may be a good idea to get somebody with a little bit of experience just to oversee and make sure everything's okay. Because at this point, you are going to get questions from the audience and from the coaches, and maybe put under a bit of pressure when you actually need to concentrate most. So it may be an idea to have a senior recorder or competition controller, not actually interfering or directing proceedings, but just overseeing to make sure that you're not being unduly pressurized. So pool sheets. With pool sheets down the sides, the competition sheets are numbered, so it's clear which match is next, but it's not too difficult. It's the one at the top is first, and just go down the list, but they are numbered, so it makes it a bit easier. And if you are in a competition, you would normally be operating a number of pool sheets. And the way to do it, or the way we recommend to do it, is if it's a pool of 3, you would do 1 contest from that particular pool, and then move on to the next pool. The reason being is both players from the first match need a minimum of 6 minutes rest before the next match. So you would obviously have multiple pools to work with. If you have a pool of 4 or 5 players, of course, you have enough players to have 2 matches out of that pool before you move on to the next pool. On a pool of 6, obviously 3. Not very often you have more than pools of 6, but it is possible. But the underlying message is no matter how it works, if you have, 3 pools of 3 and the matches go really quick and you get back to the first pool and it's been less than 6 minutes since you were there previously, you must make sure that the athlete who is going to fight in the second match has had their full 6 minutes. So this is the way of doing it. So how do the legends actually fit into a pool sheet? So we've got a pool sheet here with 5 people in there. As I said, it's numbered down the side. So here we are, 1 to 10. There's 10 matches in a pool of 5. So if we look over here to the left, we'll see what happens. So in the first case, the blue win by ippon throw. And if you look over here on the first line, ippon throw. So we've got a throw with a circle, T with a circle equals 10 points, and obviously loss in the other one. Number 2, win by ippon hold. So white wins this time with an ippon hold, H in a circle, 10, and loss. Number 3, win by ippon, strangle or choke. White wins C with a circle, 10 points, blue loss. Number 4, white win by ippon arm lock. So lock is the symbol for arm lock, in a circle, 10 points, and blue gets the loss. Number 5, win by wazari throw. So we get, this is where we get a T for throw, no circle because it's wazari, and it's 5 points for wazari in competition. So T, 5, and a loss for blue. Cumulative Ansukamaki for number 6. So we've got a P in a triangle with a 10 points. It's a mainstream event. So this is an Ansukamaki 10 and a loss for the blue athlete. A white win by a cumulative Ansukamaki again. So it's exactly the same as what we've just described, just different athletes. This time, a white win by direct Ansukamaki, but the referees decided it was not against the spirit of judo. So white wins because blue has been given Ansukamaki. The Ansukamaki will be in a triangle, which indicates it's not against the spirit of judo. 10 points and a loss for blue. The 9th match is a white win by Kikingachi. The opponent withdrew injured during the contest. So it's a KG 10, Kikingachi 10 points and a loss for blue. And the final match is a win by Wazari Awazati ippon from a throw, then a hold. So in this case, we got the T for the throw, the H for the hold, followed by a circle, TH circle, 10 points and a loss. Now, the important bit, if this was then going on to a knockout, we have to decide who is in what position. In pools, it's always the top 2 that go through into the knockout. And in this particular case, it's quite easy because we've got 5 athletes, 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So the person who had 4 wins is in first place, and the person who had 3 wins is in second place. So now is a chance for you guys to enter some stuff yourself. Okay, so this time, white wins by hip on throw. Would anybody like to give me what we put and where we put it? This is the line. In the chat room, please. White wins by hip on throw. Yes, we've got Jordan. Fantastic. T with a circle, 10, and a loss for blue. Number 2, there's somebody still moving furniture around with the audio on. Can we please mute if you need to move? Well, just mute, please. White wins by Wazari from a throw. Would you have any offers for that, please? T5 loss is the offer we've got. And of course, it is T5 and then a loss for blue. Well done. Number 3, blue wins by Wazari from a hold. Any offers? Wazari from a hold for blue. Loss H5, fantastic, well done. Loss for white H5. So I'm not going to tediously go through every single one here. So the next one, blue wins by hip on strangle. So C in a circle, 10 points. And of course, blue wins by an arm lock. L in a circle, 10 points with loss in the white. And the final match of this particular pool, because it's 4 in a pool, white wins by cumulative and Sukamaki, which is P in a triangle with 10 points, and blue is lost. Would anybody like to have a stab at adding the points up for the person called a twit? How many points has a twit got? 20 points. Throw and got the penalty as well. 20 points. So A twit scored 20 points. B movie, loss, 0. Seaside, throw 5, hold for 5. That's 10 points. And disgusting got 20 points also. So what about the total wins? Who got the most wins, if indeed one person did get the most wins? Was it, which one was it? By name. Anybody? Twitten and disgusting. Yes, of course it was. So, but what about this one? So we got Twit, Gustin and Side. All had 2 wins. The points may be a bit confusing because these 2 guys, this one and this one, both got 10-point wins. This one got 2 5-point wins. So they got 10 points, but it was 2 wins. So who is the number 1 in this pool? Anybody like to say who has got number 1 in the pool? A. A is number 1. Why is A number 1? There's lots of D's coming up. Would anybody like to give me the reason why it's D? D beat A. Thank you, Michelle. Yes, so disgusting 1 because 20 points and 2 wins. Twit, 20 points and 2 wins. But in the match between D, Disgusting, and Twit, Disgusting win. So therefore, although the points and the wins are the same, this one goes through. Well done, everybody. That was really good. So we'll now move on to the next one. So, okay. So we've got some different characters, and you might recognize them as really not judo players, but tennis players maybe. So white wins by ippon throw. So pretty straightforward. White wins by a wazari throw. Again, pretty straightforward. Blue wins by a shido in golden score. What do we think? How would that be possible? How would that be possible? Anybody? Technical restrictions, yes, of course. So, P1, Billie Jean King. She's a bit old these days to be using technical restrictions, but there you go. Contest 4. Blue wins by direct Ansukamaki, but not against the spirit of judo. So the Ansukamaki is in a triangle, 10 points, and a loss to white. And blue wins by cumulative Ansukamaki. P in a triangle, 10 points. Blue wins by 2 shidos in golden score. And as we said, contests are subject to technical restrictions. So, the total points. As we can see here. So, Henman gets 10 plus 1 is 11. Poor old Fred Perry, God rest his soul, lost all the matches. Billie Jean King, a wazari, and a technical restriction penalty win, 6 points. And Andy Murray got 20 points. So these are the total points. And we have 3 athletes with 2 wins each. And this one's quite nice and easy because they got 3 athletes with 2 wins. But there's a differential in points. Got 20, 11, and 6. So quite easy to work out. Hopefully that is reasonably clear. Is everybody okay? Anybody? So, exercise 3, pool of 4 sheet entries. So white wins by ippon throw, blue wins by ippon hold, blue wins by ippon strangle. What would we put? Any volunteers for what we put in this one? Blue wins by ippon strangle. Yes, good. Loss, choke, 10. White wins by cumulative Ansukamaki. What might we say on this particular one? Cumulative Ansukamaki. So cumulative answer Kamaki, triangle with a P and a 10, and loss for blue. And in contest 5, blue fails to appear. So what might we put for blue failing to appear in the 5th match? Yeah. Good shout. Fusinghachi 10 and a loss for the blue. So blue didn't actually turn up for the 5th match, so they lost on Fusinghachi. Blue wins by Wazari Old in golden score for the final one. So here's the tricky bit now. Would anybody like to tell me what the total points are for Troy Tempest? We've got an offer of 20 for Troy Tempest. Are there any other offers for Troy Tempest? 20? 10. We've got a 10 from Paul Taylor. Could you just tell us why it's 10, Paul? Do you know the reason why it's 10? Remove the points from the Fusinghachi player. Excellent, Paul. So, in this particular case, we've got a Fusinghachi, which means the blue athlete did not turn up for match 3. In the case where an athlete does not turn up for their match, they lose by Fusinghachi, and all of their matches are erased. Every single one becomes invalid. So this one, where Troy Tempest won by 10, becomes erased. It doesn't count because all of Joe 90's matches do not count because of this single Fusinghachi in this match. And of course, Joe 90 won that match, so he's not impacting anybody. But the one match where someone else won by other than Fusinghachi, they don't get those points. So Troy Tempest has got 10, doesn't count, loss, he gets 10. Loss, loss, Fusinghachi, that's a 0 because doesn't get that 10. Loss, 10 for winning on a strangle, and 5 for winning on a hold. And of course, Joe 90 gets nothing. There we go. So the total wins that we end up with is Troy Tempest ends up with 1 recorded win because Joe 90's match is null and void and doesn't count. So he just gets the one that he won on a throw. Tracy lost 2 matches and then the Fusinghachi doesn't count. Scarlett won the 2 matches that were against the players that stayed in. So they get 2 wins. And 90 gets nothing because of the Fusinghachi. So here, and the placings are quite easy: 2, 1, and 0, first, second, and third. Yes, really good points coming up on the chat room. We do cover it a little bit later, but as it's come up on the chat room, we will cover it. If during this process, if, for example, in match 2, Joe 90 and Scarlett, if these were both, say, first cues, 90 would still get the 10 points for the win on their downgrade points card. The Fusinghachi is a tournament issue, not an individual fight issue for downgrade points. So the note at the bottom, Joe 90 wins and losses and points do not count for the competition, but could count for point scoring towards black belt and so need to be legible. So that was the note at the end, but really, really well done to people who brought that up, because downgrade points are a very, very emotional subject, especially if someone thinks they've been done out of a few. And I was certainly one of those people. Okay, so let's now have a little look, just up the complexity just a little bit. So quite often we have level 2 events, quite often 2 pools, and then the top 2 in each pool go forward into a simple knockout. So it's quite common to have just 2 pools in a category. The entries are quite often fairly low, so you'll have 3, 4 or 5 maybe in a pool, and in all scenarios 2 people from each pool go forward into what is effectively, from 2 pools, the immediate semi-final. So the 4 players, 2 from each, qualifying for the next round will be the semi-finalists, and obviously automatically the 4 people that go through will be the medalists, because there's only 4 in the knockout. So the semi-final winners go into the final, the semi-final losers become the bronze medalists. The simple process is that the winner of pool 1 fights the runner-up of pool 2 and vice versa. So let's have a little look at it. So we've got 2 pools, and just to make it clear, we've got a pool of 4 and a pool of 3, and we're going forward into a simple knockout. So would anybody like to take a stab at which 2 players go through from the pool on your left side, the pool of 4, which 2 players go through and in what position? So if we have the name, the first name of the 2 players from the pool of 4 who go through, and who is number 1 and who is number 2. Any offers, people? Elvis first and Louis second. Of course, that's correct. And that's a really good spot. Well done, Paul. Because although Elvis had 12 points and Louis had 15, as we said, it's wins that are the prevailing parameter. Win by 10, win by 1, win by 1. So it's 3 wins. And Louis, win by 5, win by 10 is 15. So it's 3 wins, 2 wins, 1, 0. So your place, first, second, third, and fourth. So with that particular situation, so Elvis is in number 1, goes into the prime position on the first half of the knockout. So here we are, Elvis in the white position as number 1 in the first pool. Louis goes into the second position on the other half of the pool, because we certainly don't want these 2 fighting again unless it is actually in the final. So what about pool 2? Who is first, second, and third? Any offers, please? Glenn 1 and Robbie 2. So yeah, 2 wins for Glenn, 1 win for Robbie, no wins for Gary. So of course, Glenn is first, Robbie is second, and Gary is third. So would anybody like to tell me which place Robbie goes in out of these 2 spaces? So we've got a blue place and a white space. Which one will Robbie go into? Robbie goes in blue. Yes, so there by default, Glenn goes in white and Robbie in blue. Of course, we can't take this any further now because we need to have these 2 matches to make the final. The loser of this match will become a bronze medalist. The loser of this match will become a bronze medalist. And the 2 winners will battle for gold and silver. Okay. So that's all I really wanted to cover on the pool sheets and the knockout at this particular stage at this level. So there's a couple of points. So if recording these results direct to a computer system, it's really important to remember to save after every contest. Judo Shio, for example, will do this automatically, I'm told, but it's well worth whatever system you're using to check or confirm in whichever way is you're most comfortable with, that the saving of your entries is done a minimum every match, because for sure, if you don't do it, it's going to cause you some problems later on in the event. Also, for managing the event, it's also good to let the competition control table know when you only have 3 contests left. This gives them some sort of chance to feed you some more work and indeed keep the competition running smoothly. Quite often, competitions are obviously judged on many things, but people who have to travel a long way to get to an event will often make a big slice of their judgment on how the competition flows. And if there are any long waiting gaps, it tends to irritate a few, especially if they've got to travel a couple of 100 miles after or whatever it is. So important, get to the control table. I only got 3 contests left. That's usually enough for them to feed you, because they'll probably have the next round or different category of pool sheets or knockout sheets ready for you to use. This is the most important slide of the presentation, and it really is important. We must, all of us, referees, technical officials, other officials, anybody at the tournament, we must always remember that the athletes are our customers, and we should therefore do whatever we can to make their competitive experience an enjoyable one. These people are going through a lot of pain and effort to get where they are, and they are the life and soul of the event. And of course, satisfied customers will make you a good quality event. Presumably, those of you who run competitions or officiate competitions year after year after year, would like those competitions to continue and would like them to grow. And of course, when we get back to competition judo after the COVID, we certainly need to be encouraging people as best and most as we possibly can. People will tell others, if you run a good event, they will say this event starts on time, finishes about the time they said, they keep it running, there's a good communication throughout the day and all that stuff. If all that stuff goes a bit pear-shaped, that's the sort of stuff that they will remember and may choose someone else's event next time. So that's all the technical information that we wish to put through to you this evening. What we'd like to do is, if you have any specific questions for the technical team to answer, anything at all on the subject matter that we've covered. So that's the legend, the way the legend is written, the use of it, the way we put people into pools, the order of the pools, the way two pools can be used into a simple knockout. Anything of that. Any questions at all for the technical team? Yes, Peter, of course you can make a couple of points. Please do. Thank you, Peter. Let's... Anybody else in the meantime can ask a question while Peter's getting his couple of points ready. Feel free to ask a question. Nothing come through yet, Pete. Is the new Legends available on BJA website? In the format, okay. In the format that I've shown you this evening, where they're separated into 2 pages, they're not, but they are available as a single page. If you want it in the 2-page format, I can certainly send you that. Okay, what we've got from Peter. A 6-man pool would normally be 2 by 3-man pools. A 6-man pool would need to be 15 contests. 2 times 3-man would only be 6 contests. Yeah, it's a really good point that Peter's put forward there. And the 6 people in a pool is usually under some sort of special conditions. For example, if you had a number of first cues, especially ladies who find it difficult to get the matches at downgradings, you may decide to give them a pool of 6 so as they get 5 matches because they find it difficult to get the matches at downgrading. But if it was purely about the competition, you're more likely to have 2 pools of 3. That's a good one, Peter. Thank you. Julian, to answer your question, I think it's just an historical thing that that's the way the sheets were actually made initially. The review didn't actually change them because we didn't want to change anything that wasn't going to materially need changing to run the event. It's certainly something that got no particular reason not to do it. If there's enough people who would like to do that, that's fine. It's no problem. Yeah, thank you, Kerry. That's a good question. Yes, we can do that. No problem at all. We can send the stuff out and the 2 sheets. I'll do that for you. No problem. So do we have a number of people who would like the sheet order to be changed? You don't have to answer now. You could just drop me a mail or a text or something like that. Export to 1 week. Might get people adding the wings into. Yeah, it's a possibility, Paul. Yeah, I was a bit confused. I'm a little bit with Kerry, Pete. If you could just give us a bit more explanation on the on what you're looking at there, that would be helpful. Right, I think I've got what you mean there, Peter. What you're talking about is one person won on 3 Shidos and one won on 1 Shido. That could happen in a technical restrictions match, because if during the match one athlete got 3 Shidos, that would be Ansukamaki, and they would lose on that 3 Shidos. It would be a non-direct Ansukamaki. But equally, if another match had just 1 Shido, then runs all the way to the end of the time, that person would win on the single Shido. Thank you, Barbara. That is absolutely correct. Because I put it there. Well done. Yes, so it's in 1 sheet on the BJA website. Why did the player who bear the KG plan? I'm sorry, Colin, I don't quite understand your question. Fuse and Gachi, or against the spirit of direct Ansukamaki, is an out of the tournament offence. The reason that all of their matches are void is because if that were to happen, before that player has had their last fight, you would deprive the next person of the opportunity to fight. So everybody, all of their matches have to be void. It seems a bit harsh when it's the last match, but that's the way the ruling works. Okay, so what I'd like to do now, you can send us some more questions. There's just a little bit more to do, just a few minutes. So this is where you need your pen and your paper. Don't worry, we're not going to ask you to provide your test results, but this is just for your own development. You can keep the answers private to you. So there's 10 questions, and all 10 were covered during the presentation. So hopefully they will help you. So the first one, when recording a direct Ansokamaki, what is the recording difference between against the spirit of judo and not against the spirit of judo? So if you could write down on your sheet, what is the difference between the two in terms of the legend? That would be good. Question 2. When one athlete in a pool is awarded Ansokamaki against the spirit of judo, what happens to that athlete and their previous results? I think we've done that one to death in the discussion. So I think probably everybody's going to get that one. Number 3. Should one athlete who has qualified for the knockout from the pool in first place lose the last fight in the pool through Kikingachi, what should happen to the final placings? Be a little bit careful with that one. Don't get too carried away. Number 4. What is the exact legend for an athlete who wins by Wazari hold and then Wazari throw? Number 5. What is the legend for a technical restrictions win by one Shido? Number 6. For an athlete who loses by Fusengachi in the pool, where should they be placed in the knockout? Number 7. If two athletes who met in a pool match earlier meet again in the final, what should happen? Number 8. In the case of equal wins and points at the end of the pool matches between two of the athletes, who should be placed higher in the final pool positions? So in the case of equal wins and points at the end of the pool matches between two athletes, who should be placed higher in the final positions? Number 9. Who are the most important people at the competition? And I'll give you a clue. It's not us. Number 10 and final question. What should you do when using a computerized recording system after every contest is completed? So I'll just give you a few seconds to just dwell on the last couple, and then we'll go through the answers. Don't worry, no one's going to get picked on. No one's going to be asked to publicly show their answer sheet or anything like that. Okay, so here are the answers that we have. So number 1, Ansokamaki against the spirit of judo. So it's HM without a triangle, and Ansokamaki with a triangle is not against the spirit of judo. Don't worry about deciding whether it is or it isn't, because the referees have to make that decision and inform you which one it is. against the spirit of judo in pool means all results are disregarded. So if somebody commits against the spirit of judo in a pool, all results are disregarded for that particular athlete. Number 3, kikengachi does not affect the other results of that athlete in a pool. So if someone withdraws for any reason during a match, it does not affect any other results in the pool. They just lose that match by 10. A hold and then a throw would be recorded as HT in a circle. Number 5, a technical restriction single Shido win is P1. P1. Losers by Fusengachi are completely eliminated. They are not even put in the repechage. So the question is, where do they go in the repechage? Well, they don't. So losers by Fusengachi are completely eliminated, not even in repechage. 2 athletes meeting again in a final is a refight from scratch, ignoring the first result. So it's irrelevant what happened in the first match. So if player A beats player B, but in the final, player B beats player A, the one who won the last match, i.e. the one in the final, is the gold medalist. Number 8, in the case of equal wins and points between 2 athletes in a pool, the one that won the fight between them is considered to be the higher. So exactly equal wins and points, the one who won the match between those 2 people will be considered to be higher for pool placing. And number 9, the athletes are always the most important people at the event. This is the general concept of competition, and really ought to be the same in clubs as well, I think. And the final question, always save on a computerized competition sheet after every match. It could save you a hell of a lot of difficulty, because trying to recall exactly what happened and what should be recorded later on, maybe 10 or even only a couple of matches later, could be a very, very difficult scenario indeed. So I hope those questions were useful to you. And of course, I hope the answers were also useful. We've got some more questions. Yes. Yeah. So, yeah, of course, you got to decide it goes through. Yeah. So, Jenny's got a point there. So what actually happens with the against the spirit of judo, the referees will actually make a decision whether it's against the spirit of judo or not and give the result. But then after the match and it's all done, a recommendation is given to the tournament director from the referees, but it's the tournament director's final decision of what happens to that athlete afterwards. As soon as the athlete has left the mat, it then becomes the tournament director's remit. While they're on the mat, it's the referee's remit. Yeah, that's a good point, Peter, about pools to pools. So in pools to pools, the first result carries through. But in Britain, pools to pools are generally reserved just for the trials, or as we That's showing my age a bit, isn't it? Calling them the trials. It's the British Championships these days. And the reason it's saved for that type of event is two things. One, it gives you more matches, but also it's very, very, very time consuming. So not always the best competition method for local events. Barbara has a great point there. And as an ex-IT manager, I would support Barbara on what she said. It's safest to do written sheets and transfer them to the computer in case someone pulls the plug on the computer. And sometimes some people do have an habit of pulling the plug. Yes, thank you, Peter. Peter, there's not much between us. We are from the same era. We would both put the trials. Yes, thank you. And we are moving more and more and more towards an IT platform. I am pleased to say that IT is becoming more and more reliable. It's not 100%, but very few things in life are 100%. So, but yes, we are getting there. Okay. Are there any outstanding questions? Any outstanding questions at all?